We began last week in chapter 25 of Job, and we heard from Bildad one last time. And Bildad basically didn't have anything new to say, could not dispute anything, could not argue anything that Job had said, could not offer any good advice, could not offer any good comfort. So basically he just told Job, well, you know, God's sovereign. He's above all of us, and we're not worthy to be in his presence. I know that's absolutely no help to you, Job, but that's what I have to say at this point. And we realize that it's just because Bildad and Eliphaz and Zophar, they just haven't had anything good to say from the beginning. And Job has, well, turned back everything they have said, turned back every accusation, and they realize that as far as their wonderful words of advice for Job and their conviction of their friend, they have pretty much lost the argument. And Job has begun his final statement, his final words. And in chapters 26 through 28, he speaks again to his friends. He actually rebukes his friends. And we began to look at chapter 26 last week. We looked at the first 4 verses, and we saw that in his rebuke, he told his friends that they just simply don't understand comfort. They have no idea what it is to comfort a friend. And he actually started off kind of in a sarcastic tone. We read those first 4 verses. It said, but Job answered and said, how hast thou helped him that is without power? How savest thou the arm that hath no strength? How hast thou counseled him that has no wisdom? And how hast thou plentifully declared the thing as it is? To whom hast thou uttered words? And whose spirit came from thee? He basically told them that they were of no help to him whatsoever. In all their rebuke, all of their not comforting him, but more provoking him and accusing him, they have been of no help to him whatsoever. We're going to continue to look at chapter 26 tonight. And the next thing that we see in verses 5 through 14 is Job tells Bildad specifically, but all of his friends, that you have no understanding of God. So let's read what it says in verses 5 through 14, and then we'll go ahead and break it down a little bit. Dead things are formed from under the waters, and the inhabitants thereof. Hell is naked before him, and destruction hath no covering. He stretches out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing. He bindeth up the waters in his thick clouds, and the cloud is not rent under them. He holdeth back the face of his throne, and spreadeth his cloud upon it. He hath compassed the waters with bounds, until the day and night come to an end. The pillars of heaven tremble, and are astonished at his reproof. He divideth the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smiteth through the proud. By his spirit he hath garnished the heavens. His hand hath formed a crooked serpent. Lo, there are parts of his way, but how little a portion is heard of him. But the thunder of his power, who can understand? So in chapter 25, Bildad just kind of expressed the greatness of God. He told Job that God is just sovereign. God is this power that is so far above us. And basically Job tells him here, you don't even know the half of it. You haven't even begun to understand who God is. He goes on in kind of a rant about the real greatness of God. He says, dead things are formed from under the waters, the inhabitants thereof. Hell is naked before him, and destruction has no covering. That word that's translated in the King James as hell is Sheol. It was the place of the dead. Destruction, as it's translated in the King James, is a place. It is the Hebrew word Abaddon, which was the place of punishment or utter ruin. So Job is telling Bildad, God has authority over all of this as well. Not only over the living, but over the dead as well. Bildad says God has dominion. And Job takes it a step further. He has dominion in life, in death, in judgment, in everything. So much so that the departed spirits tremble before him. Everything man has ever done lays bare before God. Sheol is naked, or hell is naked before him. God sees all, he knows all, and he judges all. Job is expounding even further on Bildad's simple statement. Bildad said, "And upon whom doth not his light arise?" It was a simple expression of God being the creator of all things. God created all things, and his light shines upon all things. In verses 7 through 10, Job takes it even further. He stretcheth out in the north over the empty place, hangeth the earth upon nothing. He bindeth up the waters in this thick cloud, and the cloud is not rent under him. He holdeth back the face of his throne, spreadeth his cloud upon it. He compassed the waters with bounds until the day and night come to an end. Bildad called God the creator of light. Job responds as if to say, "You're in way over your head. You have no idea what you're talking about. Did you know that God stretched out the north over empty space? Did you know that God hung the world on nothing? What did God create the world from? Nothing. There was nothing, because there was nothing for God to create the world from. God looked into empty and brought forth something, hung it on nothing, and told it to stay there. And only one can do that. And that's the creator of all things. There is the word in the book of Genesis, and it's over and over throughout the Old Testament and in the New Testament. The first verse in Genesis chapter 1 says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." And the word created there is the Hebrew word bawa, which means created out of nothing. It doesn't mean put back together. It doesn't mean gathered this and this and recreated. It means he created it out of nothing. That's what God did with the earth. That's what he did with the heavens. There was nothing, and God created something. He created everything that we know based out of nothing. Job's basically telling Bildad, you don't have a clue. Bildad expressed the idea that creation was not just before God. He said, but Job says that even the stars were not pure before God, and certainly man was. Actually, Bildad said that. Job responds again, you don't even know what you know. Verses 11 through 13 say, the pillars of the heaven tremble and are astonished at his reproof. He divideth the sea with his power, and by his understanding he smiteth through the proud. By his spirit he has garnished the heavens, his hand hath formed the crooked serpent. It's not that just that creation falls short of his standard. It's basically that creation sits on pins and needles at the thought of his rebuke. Nothing that God has created dare defy him. Not the sea, not the sky, not the lightning. Creation is terrified of his holy rebuke. And then Job ends his short lesson with words to really pierce his friends. Verse 14 says, lo, these are parts of his ways, but how little a portion is heard of him. But the thunder of his power, who can understand? Job just expanded on their simple view of God and then said, and even what I've told you barely scratches the surface. His point to his friends is simple. You don't have a clue. You don't even begin to understand who God is and what he is. Basically, he's told his friends so far, you have arrived at my house to give comfort, by the way, which you didn't do. You try to explain God's working to me, of whom you know nothing. Job's being pretty harsh to his friends here. He's telling them basically they don't understand how to be a comforter, and they don't understand anything about God. Then he goes on to tell them in chapter 27, verses 1 through 12, you don't understand integrity. All along, one of the main issues between Job and his friends is that Job has maintained his integrity, while his friends continually attacked it. They argued time and time again that there was no way that Job could be a pure man and suffer like he was suffering because of the whole idea of that prosperity gospel. Job, you're being punished, so you must have done something wrong. You got to be a sinner because you're suffering. That's all there is to it. Job maintained that he was a pure man and that he did not deserve this suffering. And in this portion of chapter 27, Job's going to tell them that they don't know what real integrity even looks like. He starts with a simple declaration in verses 1 through 6. Moreover, Job continued his parable, and he said, As God liveth, who hath taken away my judgment, and the Almighty who hath vexed my soul. All the while my breath is in me, and the Spirit of God is in my nostrils. My lips shall not speak wickedness, nor my tongue utter deceit. God forbid that I should justify you. Till I die, I will not remove my integrity from me. My righteousness I hold fast, and I will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me as long as I live. Look at verse 5 and 6 there again. God forbid that I should justify you. Till I die, I will not remove my integrity from me. My righteousness I hold fast. I will not let it go. My heart shall not reproach me so long as I live. Job says, no matter what you say, no matter what you think of me, to his friends, doesn't matter. I will not give up my integrity. I will not fall into that. I will not turn my back on God. I will not be that person that you think that I am. I'm just not going to do it. Job says, my conscience is clean. I've got nothing to be ashamed of here. Job's going to take a few minutes and he's going to show them what they've actually been unable to see. Job's going to show them some evidence of his integrity. He's going to show them why they should have known he was, in fact, an innocent man. Verses 7 through 12 say this: Let mine enemy be as the wicked, and he that riseth up against me as the unrighteous. For what is hope of the hypocrite, though he hath gained when God taketh his soul? Will God hear his cry when trouble cometh upon him? Will he delight himself in the Almighty? Will he always call upon God? I will teach you by the hand of God that which is with the Almighty will I not conceal. Behold, all ye yourselves have seen it. Why then are ye thus altogether vain? He's revealing that the response he has demonstrated since his affliction has started are not the response of the wicked. Let mine enemy be as the wicked, and he that riseth up against me as the unrighteous. For what is the hope of the hypocrite, though he gained when God taketh away his soul? Will God hear his cry when trouble cometh upon him? Will he delight himself in the Almighty? He's basically saying that a person that is a godless person, a wicked person, has no hope. He doesn't expect vindication. He doesn't have hope of anything better because he knows he's wicked. But where has Job said that his hope has been from the beginning is in God. And it's not in this life, in the flesh, because he knows right now he's being punished, and he really has nothing to look forward to in the flesh, because his pain isn't lessening, his situation isn't getting any better, but he still has hope, and it's in God, and it's in the future. It's in eternity. He still has hope, and he says the wicked, they don't have any hope. So how can you say I'm wicked when I still have hope? The wicked may be able to lie about it to those that are around him, but he knows in his heart what he is, and he knows what he's going to face, and he doesn't have hope. And that certainly isn't Job. Remember again Job's great statement of hope that he made back in chapter 19. For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God, whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another, though my reins be consumed within me. He still has hope no matter what. And he's telling them, if he was a wicked person like they think he is, he would be without hope. Job was confused as to why he was suffering, but he wasn't without hope. Job says that's not normal for godless people, for the wicked ones. Verse 10, he asks that question, will he delight himself in the Almighty? Will he always call upon God? Do the wicked people continue to call upon God? No, they haven't called upon God because they don't know God. They have no hope in God if they're wicked. So they're not going to continue to call upon God. And yet, Job just spent a while ago, we read a whole chapter where he basically said, if I could stand before God, God would vindicate me. If I could call God as a witness to testify for me, he would set me free. He would declare me to be righteous. Would a wicked person do that? If somebody that is guilty of breaking the law, if somebody that is guilty of doing something wrong, does he want a witness that's going to come and tell the truth? No. Job says, I want the witness that's going to tell the truth. So he's probably not doing anything wrong. He's probably not being a wicked person. And he's trying to show his friends. He's trying to show them, look, you keep saying I'm guilty. But look at all the evidence. The evidence says I still have hope in God. I'm still looking for God to vindicate me. And if I was truly guilty, if I was truly a wicked person, that would be the last thing that I would want to do. Jesus said in John chapter 3, verses 19 through 21, and this is the condemnation, that light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be manifest, that they are wrought in God. Job's saying, I want to be in the light. I want God to vindicate me. I want God to stand there and testify on my behalf. I want truth to be shown. The wicked, they don't want people to know the truth. Because the truth is, they're wicked. That they've done things that they shouldn't do. That they deserve the punishment that they're facing. But Job says, I don't. I haven't done anything. And if God would shine the light on the situation, people would see that. The godless and the wicked and those without integrity don't naturally cling to God when they're under wrath. Think about, somebody had mentioned it a while back here in the book of the Revelation. when God is causing the plagues to come upon the earth. And the people are hiding in caves, and they recognize that it is the wrath of God upon them. And they still don't turn to God. They know it's God punishing them for being wicked. But they still won't turn to Him. Why? Because they're wicked.
They love their sin more than they love God.
They love their sin more than they love God. Yeah.
It's coming again.
That's right. That's right. Job ends this section by saying in verse 12, "Behold, all ye yourselves have seen it. Why then are ye thus altogether vain?" You don't spot a man of integrity by whether or not he suffers. You spot a man of integrity by how he responds to it when he suffers. He says, you know, you've seen. You know what the results are. And yet, you still don't understand. Those that are righteous run to the light. They run to God. They cling to God. They cry out to God. Their hope is in God. Job is telling his friends that they obviously do not understand integrity. They obviously don't know the marks of somebody that is genuinely trusting in God. You don't understand comfort. You don't understand God. And you don't understand what integrity looks like. The next portion, well, I think we'll stop there. There's a couple more parts to this next couple of chapters, so we'll stop there. But the next part is they don't understand judgment. Job's friends saw Job suffering, and they made a foolish assumption. They assumed that what Job was experiencing was the wrath of judgment of God. They don't understand what judgment is. We'll talk about that next week. Let's have a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for this time together this evening to pray and study your word. We ask, Lord, that you would go with us the remainder of this week, that you would help us as always to be lights in the darkness. Help us to walk by your word and by your spirit. And we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pastor, what was the verses that you covered today?
That was chapter 26, verses 5 through the end of the chapter, and chapter 27 we started, and it was verses 1 through 12. Yeah, 1 through 12.